Okay, this is the August market report for Washtenaw County. And what we've been watching for a number of months across Southeast Michigan, Michigan in general, is sort of the evolving story of, are we finally hitting, ending the recovery, the bounce up from the recovery and sort of settling into a more normal market. And whenever you talk about Washtenaw County, you always have to have the little asterisk, because when you're talking about Michigan, you have the general direction of where Michigan is growing. Then the asterisk always is, yeah, but then there's Washtenaw County. And it's a good asterisk, because although the state itself is showing in most markets, particularly Southeast Michigan, that we are starting to settle into a real estate market that better matches the underlying economy, which is steady but slow. Washtenaw, of course, is still settling a little bit, but outperforming the rest of the world. In general, the transition from fast bounce recovery to settling market usually takes a period of time, and we've been seeing each month, a little bit of signs of that change. It started first at the upper end, and that's true for Washtenaw as well. The upper end market starting to settle a little bit. There's rising inventories. That's the first sign, is inventory rising. And the second sign is our sales starting to slow, and even not rising as fast as last year. And we saw that in July, but it was just 1 month, so we'll see if all prior months we were beating the prior year. So it's too early to make a definitive statement, except that we are definitely seeing that in Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, and Livingston. So we think that eventually that will settle into Washtenaw as well, at least to some degree. So in general, we're seeing the upper end market very strong. And in fact, you see sort of an odd thing for the under 250 in Washtenaw County. You see home values flat, inventories shrinking dramatically. Well, that's not an indication there's a problem in the under 250. It's an indication of just the opposite, that the under 250 market is so strong and so wild that homes are appreciating very quickly, and they're actually moving above that 250 category. So what used to be an under 250 property is now an over 250 property, and that in itself is sort of draining the bucket for the under 250, so it's causing inventories there to shrink even more, and also sort of masking the appreciation, because you're appreciating out of that category. So we're still seeing strong appreciation rates in the under 250. We're still seeing a significant inventory shortage. And even in the mid categories, the 250 to 500, we're still also seeing an inventory shortage there as well that hasn't really been relieved just yet. And that's sort of the center of most activity in Washtenaw County anyways. But where we're seeing some of the signs is in the outlying areas. The upper end markets outlying sort of the suburban feeder communities to Washtenaw, to Ann Arbor itself. We're seeing a little bit of slowing there, or at least not rising as fast. In Dexter market, other markets, still strong activity, but it isn't rising as fast as core Ann Arbor, and that makes sense. In that's typically how, if markets are starting to settle a little bit, they tend to settle on the edges first, and they move towards the center. And most of that has to do with the fact that that demographically, the activity, the Gen X, Gen Y buyers, which is the biggest bulge, tend to be first-time home buyers and driving into center city markets. And the move-up buyers tend to be a little less category, and therefore a little less demand out there. So it's not surprising to see those things. In general, if you're a seller, again, depending on the price range, you can get a lot of activity under 250, but in general, you can expect the fall and going forward to be a little bit slower than the first half of the year, and probably a little bit slower than last year. So relatively speaking, at the under 250, slower might be 2 offers in 30 days versus 4, but it's still going to feel slower than your neighbors saw when they sold their house 6 months ago. And the higher the price, the more you're going to feel a little slower. It's because if you have, in the case of the over 500, if you have more properties for sale and about the same number of buyers, that means supply is exceeding demand, and values will start to settle. Now, we haven't seen values settle that dramatically in the over 500 yet in Washtenaw, where we've definitely seen that in Oakland, Wayne, Macomb, and Livingston County. But we would expect that to start to happen, just because if inventories are rising, math dictates that that'll start to settle. The other thing to be aware of as a seller is we all can't help but have a little bit of voyeurism and look at Zillow and the other online valuation models to see where our house is. Keep in mind that up until about 6 months ago, Zillow was consistently undervaluing the value of the home because they're about 6 or 8 months, even as much as 9 months behind in their data. So, and any online valuation, isn't just Zillow, has those same issues. So, so you're always going to be pleasantly surprised up until recently, and now they're going to have a tough time catching up with the settling of the market. So they're going to start to be overvaluing for a while as well. So that's sort of a prediction of what's going to happen in the next 12 months, but you can probably expect that to start to happen. Again, Washtenaw County always has the asterisk that whatever happens to Michigan in a negative way won't affect Washtenaw as much, and whatever happens to Michigan in a positive way will happen to Washtenaw even more so. At least that's the world that we're in now. So, so overall, we've still got very good real estate news for the county. Real estate news is good for the state in general, but have an expectation of things starting to get a little more normal and expectations of a little less activity going into the fall than we saw through summer and even through the spring. So that's it. Thanks.